Hey there everybody, it's Nathan Kuhl with SurferMagazine.com. Wanted to give you an update on kind of what's happening so far this year to kick off January 2018. We've had one massive swell that did kick the Oregon coast really hard, and even Southern California saw quite a bit of surf come in from that. We're in a La Nina year though, and I haven't given an update on what's going on with the ENSO, El Nina, La Nina, kind of what's happening in between. So I wanted to give an update, kind of what we can expect as we start to go forward. We haven't seen a lot of rain so far in January. It is starting to look pretty dry. What does it really mean though for surf? What does it mean for possible winds coming up? Is there going to be change on the horizon as we get into February? Sometimes we can get some surprises, and February can pull out a good surprise for us with a lot of rain for Southern California, but I'm not too sure about that. I'm going to show you though what's going on, what's backing that up, what we might be able to expect. You ready to get started? Let's take a look. So the first thing when talking about El Nino or La Nina is, of course, to see what's going on with the sea surface temperatures. We can see today there's a lot of cold water that's going around the Pacific, especially that equatorial zone. Remember the blob here a year or two ago? That's pretty much gone. Started up about 2014, or really started fading last year, but we're back to about normal water temperatures across much of the Pacific. When you look at this yellow area isn't really that much above it. Now this cold water in here, this deep blue, that's a pretty serious La Nina that's going on. Now we've got a bit of a PDO, that Pacific Decadal Oscillation, which is keeping the waters warmer right around the coast when we get down here in South America, and also along the west coast of the US. But it's really not enough to really change a lot of the pattern that's going on. La Nina has a lot to do with that. So we take a look. This is when El Nino was reaching its peak. We had these water temperatures really warm around January 2016. You can see that very powerful looking. We didn't actually get a whole lot of rain though then, as you might recall. It wasn't really until the next year, and that's when we went into more of a neutral state. So this was last year about this time. This was right about the time we started getting a lot of flooding rains in January, February. You might recall the Oroville crisis with the dam that just about gave way. The spillway had deteriorated then. But anyways, there was a lot of rain that did fall then, but that was pretty much during a neutral year. The PDO, you can still see somewhat of a signal from that, evident from these water temperatures that were still warm along the coasts of especially South America off Peru, but it wasn't anywhere near an El Nino, just a neutral state. So where we are now though, is you can see we came out of that neutral state. It really wasn't much before. We can see April 2017 on the left hand side of this graph. When we were in the real strong El Nino, that was really through the roof. That graph, it would have just broke through the top of this particular chart. Where we are now, though, is where the lines start to kind of spread out. And those are the different various model runs on what could happen. And you can see it's about a 50-50 chance of basically being El Nino or La Nina, but there's more of a trend toward La Nina, which makes sense. We do have a lot of cold water that's around right now when we take a look at what's happening on our current state compared to where we were when we were in a strong El Nino. So with a lot of that cold water out there, well, there's definitely a good chance that we could be keeping that La Nina going for a while. And of course, La Nina means dry conditions for California, especially Southern California, where El Nino tends to be wetter. Neutral conditions also. If we can get in a neutral state, then we can get back to where we were during that wetter winter last season. As far as surf is concerned, we can see that it didn't really take a whole lot of El Nino to start bringing heavy surf. We can even see here back in 2015 on 16 November, we were getting 20-foot seas. So we had heavy surf back when El Nino was gearing up. That kind of has backed off. We did, though, have a very heavy swell here just recently. It was just late last week when we had a lot of surf that hit the Oregon coast. There's a lot of footage online. Google that, and also over on surfer.com. They've got some coverage of that. You can see we did have a pretty powerful swell coming in, but those are probably going to be few and far between. As we go forward, we can start seeing why. So this is a look at the relative vorticity across the northern hemisphere, and this is giving us an idea what the jet stream is doing and also what low pressure area systems are doing as well. This is provided by NOAA, one of their models that is for free. You can get online. If I start that moving forward in time, you can start seeing what's happening up here. This is the Gulf of Alaska. It might be hard to see this, the California coast. This is the jet stream. We'd expect during a La Nina season to see a lot of high pressure dominating that Gulf. Well, it's not. So we can see low pressures coming along just fine. and we can see that moving along toward the coast. And that's similar to what happened when we got that large amount of swell that came in late last week that bombed the coast. But it didn't drop down from the Gulf of Alaska. It actually came up from Hawaii. This storm here won't have as much chance to really build as much, but we're still expecting a good amount of surf out of this to hit us by the 26th. So the end of the week, we're looking at by Friday, definitely some bigger surf. Anyways, moving the models forward more in time, we can start seeing another formation happening out here. Two things are going on. We see the jet stream calming down, staying at a fairly decent mid-latitude, and then we've got strong activity over here in the Western Pacific, but ahead of it, blocking high pressure. This is typical of La Nina. It doesn't always have to be La Nina for this to happen, but if we were in El Nino, this strong Western Pacific system would hitch a ride on what would be a more aligned jet stream without any blockage in it. So we're not seeing a lot of that. In fact, as we move toward the February time frame, that's when we start seeing more of an La Nina pattern start to develop. Not a lot of high pressure blocking going on here. Still got some storms that can drop down from the Gulf of Alaska. This is on Monday the 29th. But moving that forward, just nudging it more. You look at this high pressure. This is Southern California. It wants to build and build and build. And when that happens, yeah, some of this may get brushed down toward our area. Yeah, we may see some surf out of that right around the 30th, maybe the 1st. But then that high pressure wants to build and even more. So we're looking at like Santa Ana conditions. That's what this looks like right here. When we see a lot of high pressure move in, this is February 3rd. So that's not really looking conducive at that point to surf or rain for Southern California, although it could be some very nice weather. So another thing that we have to worry about is, or be concerned of, is how much moisture is in the atmosphere to be able to help fuel some of the incoming storms if we do get them. And right now, this is what it's looking like from one of the NOAA satellites from GOES West, and it just isn't really much. You can see these storms, all this humidity, this moisture, it's just up to the north. There's no moisture plume down here. There's a moisture plume way down here to the south. And why is that important? Let's take a look at last year. So this is from January 7th last year. This is when an atmospheric river pattern set up shop and just started dumping a whole lot of rain in California. So even though we had a little bit of high pressure blocking, that's what this H is over here, over by the Aleutians. This thing right here, that's a strong area of low pressure. And this trough associated with it dipped far south and started drawing up moisture. And that was that atmospheric river. To get a better idea, here's another archived model shot of that. And you can see that moisture plume, it extended way down to Hawaii. That's the Pineapple Express. There's that low pressure system. And this was all the way out to 22 January. So there was a lot of activity that was happening in January and February last year to feed those atmospheric river systems. But when we look at what's happening right now, there just really isn't any tropical moisture plume to speak of, at least over our area. The tropical plume right now is mostly over Mexico. It's even farther south than Baja. So rain looks light. What are we looking at for surf? Well, this is what's going on with some of the wave models right now. This is just the Northeast Pacific looking at FNMOC models. And we can see that, yeah, not a whole lot going on. We start moving the models forward in time. This guy forms up here. That's the swell maker for later on. That should hit Southern California on the 26th. If you look to the left of it, not a whole lot of activity that's riding in there. So a little bit of stuff could start forming in the Gulf. That's what I was showing. It could bring possible rain by the end of the month, and it could also bring us some surf by then right now. But no major swells are starting to form in the Western Pacific that would ride a jet stream that'd be conducive to a major swell pattern, at least over the next couple weeks in Southern California once we get past this swell on Friday on the 26th. So that's how things are looking right now. We definitely are in a more La Nina type state right now. It looks like we could stay in that for quite some time also. It's a 50-50 chance. Models still can't seem to decide exactly what to figure out on that. Now, that does mean we could have some nice weather. We could also get some ground swells that come our way from the Western Pacific. They don't get a chance to get really big as they would cross the entire Pacific and grow, possibly bring rain to the region, which we need really bad always. But those swells staying farther away could bring moderate northwest groundswell to our area under sunny skies and possible Santa Anas once we get into the beginning to middle of February. That's all based on long-range models though, and really who knows what will happen. We can tell climatologically speaking, statistically speaking, that there's a good possibility that's going to happen, and models right now are showing that great possibility. Anyways, I'll have more details in my reports on surfer.com. You can follow those at forecasts.surfer.com. Look for Southern California, and you can also sign up for our email forecast then too. I do that report 3 times a week, have been for about 20 years now, and as soon as one of those reports is posted, if you're on our email list, you'll be notified right away. Also, if you like these videos and you want to see more of them, you can subscribe to this YouTube channel. It won't cost anything, and as soon as one of these videos is posted, you'll be the first to know. Thanks a lot for watching. Until next time, take care, be safe, and smile in the lineup.